everyone. Welcome to After Sex Ed with Sabrina. My guest is Daniel, my cousin, who I've known my whole life. And when I said I was starting a sex education for adults podcast, and when I started my Instagram account posting stuff, he was the first to comment. He was the first to say, "That's not true," or "That is true," or "I'm like that." And, and when I said,
Got
"Hey,"
strong opinions.
and I was like, "You want to be in a podcast?" He was like, "Sure." What's the topic? Doesn't matter. Could be anything.
Whatever it is, I'm opinionated.
So, anyways, everybody is in for a real treat today because the topic is pornography. And, and Daniel has said that he is a wealth of knowledge and he's going to share some things. But before I start, Dan, do you want to talk a bit about yourself? And what I ask everyone always is, how did you learn about sex? So you can start there.
Do you want me to talk about where I learned about sex? God, who knows?
Where didn't I?
Yeah, no, I don't think it started with porn. I don't think porn was what taught me about sex. I think I feel like I knew or was very sexually aware at an incredibly young age.
Yeah,
maybe 6.
Yeah,
Maybe even younger. 5.
that's not that's average. Lots of people say, I think the first time I saw something and was like, what? I was like 6, 7.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if it was I didn't see pornography at that age, that's for sure. But I definitely seen a naked girl at that age, and it was more so from an interest of oh, let's see what you got going on down there.
Were you like, I want that, or were you like, what is that?
No, I think it came from a place of curiosity and interest, and yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What about because I noticed we're elder millennials, and then when I talk to elder millennials,
Geriatric, apparently.
or
Geriatrics.
geriatrics,
Awful name.
we say porno mags a lot. We say Playboys, or I found my dad's Playboy or Penthouse or whatever. And then younger people, it's that's gone. They don't have that. They don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't find any of my parents adult literature. that wasn't commonplace in my house. No, I think the first time I saw one of those was probably in early grade school.
Yeah.
There was a guy who brought out a Playboy on a bus, and then I think maybe a year after that, one of my classmates took one of his father's penthouses.
Wow.
And yeah, we were kind of cruising that in the play yard.
Okay, you were looking at it in the schoolyard. Okay.
What would you think?
I know, I was cruising the play yard. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah, we were showing off. Everyone, have a look. Take a look. Have a look at this.
Oh my God.
No, so yeah, I mean, I guess the early vintage of color pornography happened for our generation.
I know, that's when things went in color and live.
Yeah. And I certainly remember, with the advent of technology and the internet, and dial-up and all that sort of stuff was definitely interesting to try and see if we could, because I mean, what else do you use the internet for anyway?
Yeah, I know, right? It's the number one.
Pornography, right?
So that reminds me of this thing in school. Speaking of which, I'll just jump right in. One of the lessons we were talking about was tools of communication throughout the entire course of human history. As soon as you develop it, like the printing press or the telephone or the magazine or whatever, the internet, it will be used for pornography immediately. It will be used for a means of sex immediately. So printing press was they're printing naked pictures right away.
Oh yeah.
Phones,
yeah, actually
yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually had a coffee table book of vintage pornography, 1800s.
Yeah.
Turn of the century.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Shocking and hilarious.
Anyways, okay, I want to talk about this study that I thought was really interesting because
Okay.
I don't know if it's true or not. And
so you don't think it's true, or
I think that
you need someone help substantiate this?
I think that there's flexibility in. Okay, so it's called the disgust. It's called the disgust factor. And it makes me laugh
The
because
disgust factor.
in like sexuality and like sex studies and whatever, whenever you're talking about like sex topics, it's always like use like neutral language and empathetic words, but it's like no, this is just disgust and disgusting. And this has to do with
Yeah.
porn. So like the experiment basically like took people that consumed porn and it monitored their habits. And then it like monitored them watching porn. And then when they were, it's like you start off from point A, where you're like, I like this, I want to look at this thing, and then it gets progressively and progressively more disgusting. And that's their words. They're like, it just gets worse and worse and worse until you get to the one that you pick, and you're like, that's it, that's the one. And then
Just
people
enough shame on that one.
and then they masturbate, they finish, and then when they look at it, they're like, "Oh my god, it's disgusting." And then they shut it and they're like, "It's disgusting," is the word that they use. And then the study goes on to say that every time you open that laptop, you will start worse and worse and worse. You don't start from point A.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's true because I think that a lot of people, because for every one study there's a counter, and then there's another one that says, people have things in their spank bank that have lived there forever, and
Yeah.
they kind of just go back and they go, yeah, that was really disgusting, that thing I saw before, but I kind of want to go back to the basics. Now I'm going to look for like whatever, some girl
Yeah.
drinking a milkshake.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Uh,
whatever.
so yeah, so I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, and I think that it's like almost like the rubber band theory. Like someone gets stretched enough, and they kind of like, oh, they can't go back to where they were before,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
they've almost been like tainted. Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, like, I don't think that's not true for me. At
yeah,
least I think that like, you know, what I mean, like, I always go back to like where I was, or like, you know, like, I mean, in the reality, honestly, it's like I don't know, it's like no one wants to eat the same thing every single day for the rest of their life, right? So I think it's a variety thing,
uh-oh,
and I
yeah,
think it has to do with like whatever your appetite is that day,
yeah,
so to speak, right? Whatever it is, and you know, sure, like maybe throughout your journey. Throughout your journey that day, you may start here and end up there, and it could be more grotesque or more
yeah,
benign, like just
yeah,
whatever it is. But I also think it's like very situational as well. I think it's also like really it has to do with um, whatever at that particular point in time
yeah,
triggers your arousal, right? Which is, I mean, like, and that's like, I guess, kind of like the beauty of like, or of the beauty and also like kind of like the double edged sword of pornography. So like,
yeah,
you you can go
everything is
pretty deep,
there, yeah,
and it's all there, it's
yeah,
all there for you. You know what I mean? And it's like it gives the average individual the opportunity to see more, for men, like more naked women in
yeah,
like 1 hour than we would have conceivably been able to see in our entire lives.
yeah, yeah.
Back in whenever, right? Like
See,
before the internet.
so like, yeah, like porn. Okay, so like everything about men and male desire and male arousal, men, blah, blah, blah. It's all like visual, visual, visual. Like it's like they want to see everything, but there are psychological components to it. Like what you see, I think matters. So like, okay, so this one study is like one of the top image searches on this like porn site for men was just like a vulva with no human. It was just like
Just
bang,
just
that
just vagina.
just vagina. That's it. And it's like it's not even a person there. And then the next thing in the same study, it's like what arouses men more than anything psychologically and across the board is what pictures of her really into it. So like which one is it? Is it like you want this person to be like really really into it and that's the thing that you could like fixate on? You're just like no, I just would rather see vaginas. Or like
Just a close up. Like
well
just like,
basically that's what the study
well,
said. It was like
I mean, honestly, like I think like I think that there's like multiple shades of gray here.
yeah,
It's
like
not
all
black and white.
things. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like multiple shades of gray here, right? And I think that yeah, like everyone might go for the close up, and everyone might go for like the full picture of the situational what's going on thing, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like I mean, to be honest, like like for me personally, like yeah, like sometimes you bounce between the two of them. Like it all depends on what's going on, right? Like I think whatever quote unquote tickles your fancy. You
It's
know,
just
um,
crazy. Like how much accessibility there is too. And how as kids it's like you couldn't just be like, "What do I feel like today? Just a vagina close up?" Or like a woman smiling with like a dick in her face. Like I could pick.
I want to see a lot of engagement here. I want to see, Yeah, no,
Uh,
and I think that that's the thing, right? Is I think that like, with regards to pornography, it's almost like justified a lot and legitimized a lot of people's cravings that they
yeah,
kind of probably thought were like keeping to themselves and realizing, wow, there's a whole
yeah,
category for this. It's like if
yeah.
they're doing a whole category for this, like there's got to be other people that are into this too, right? Like,
I mean, pornography is so polarizing, and everything we study about it is like there's no right or wrong way to feel about it. Like some people, it evokes really strong negative emotions. They're like, it's just awful, and it like upsets me so much. And then some people are like, it's really helped me in my life for this reason. That like other people like what I like. Oh my god, geez, I'm not alone. I'm not nuts, you know. But then like it's just like across the board, no matter how you feel about it, every single study basically that asks like have you seen porn or do you look at it or have you seen it in your lifetime is it's as close to yes as you can get. Like it's
mm,
yes, it's almost 100%, and that's so uncommon, you know? That like
mm.
despite people having super strong emotions about it, be like it's disgusting and I don't want my partner to ever see it. It's like have you seen it? Like well yeah, obviously. And like and you're
But I
and
think that that's actually more of a. I feel like that's like almost more of a like they feel like socially required to do that. It's like they're ashamed a little bit, and it's like these like social norms. And I think that like pornography breaks down a lot of like because like listen here, the reality is like you tend to watch pornography in the comfort of your own private space.
you have nailed the common denominator for men and women, which is you watch it in private. It's not
Yeah,
it doesn't like so women watch it in private, men watch it in private, but men have actually like said that it could be a group activity with their friends of the same gender. They don't mind.
yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
think
actually
like
no,
in
I don't think it was same gender. I don't think gender mattered. I
oh
think
I think
yeah.
so. I was gonna say like so it's like of course I don't think it's uncommon when you're younger
Yeah.
and you know what I mean and that like and all of you guys are super interested in it and you all have like this like
Mhm.
oh, I want to see this thing. Like, yeah, for sure. Like, like sometimes it's a group exercise, I guess. But like, I mean, like for me, it was, I feel like I don't think it was ever really like a group exercise. And I think like I don't think anyone was jerking off at the time. I'm sure certain
Yeah.
people were, and I do know of people that definitely did, like friends that did watch it together and like jerk off together while they're watching it. And to me, I don't like that's like on a whole other
I
level.
think
That's
that's a guy thing. I shouldn't
I
say that though.
it most likely is. I mean, I don't put it past men to do that, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't really my shtick. It really wasn't for me, you know.
when I
But
when I was in Kenya and I was teaching sex ed, I remember like the kids had a lot of questions about pornography. It was like me and this other girl we were talking about it, and they were like, "Are they really doing it in the movies, Miss?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "But like for real, are they married?" And we're like, "No, they're not married." And they like couldn't get over the fact that like sex was actually happening. But then meanwhile, speaks to my own ignorance that like I'm like teaching in a slum. I'm teaching in Kibera. They don't have really anything there. So I'm like, where are you seeing porn? Where are you watching it? Because it's not paper. They're watching a movie, and then they
smartphones.
no they go we pool our money together, and then we take the bus to the internet cafe, and then we buy time, and then we sit and we watch it together. And I was
Oh
like,
wow,
really? That like that's how okay. It's like you cannot stop boys and girls. They were like, whatever.
wow, really?
Yeah.
Huh,
Can't stop. You
crazy
can't stop kids
in
from looking
public.
at this.
In public.
I
Well,
mean, like they were huddled.
everyone's interested in sex. You know.
Yeah, most people, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But like, I say, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I don't want to color everyone with the same brush. But yeah, like
Yeah,
I'd say that there's high percentage of individuals that are pretty interested in sex and that are are interested in and to be honest, like I don't think that watching people have sex is a new thing either. Like we already
yeah,
know that, right? With like
yeah.
the Romans, like literally
Oh
just
yeah.
like just like watching people have sex while they're eating grapes laying on a chaise lounge.
Yeah,
Like so I don't think like watching people have sex is like any voyeurism is certainly not a new thing whatsoever.
like voyeurism, like now we can segue into fantasies now, and things that I've learned about fantasies are like I've learned a lot. You think there's not much to learn about fantasies, but there's a ton cuz like
Of course,
the top fantasies are tend to remain the same. Threesomes, voyeurism, like watching people or being watched. And then it's like just like sex with your current partner in crazy ways, sex with a past partner, crazy ways. It's not like I guess what I'm trying to say, nothing mind-blowing. I'm like, these fantasies are like relatively tame. You think like like, so one of the exercises I have to do in my program, our prof was like, write down your fantasy, your ultimate fantasy. And then like all of our classmates and I were like, I like, what is it? I don't know. And then in like the next slide, he says, it doesn't have to be crazy because like 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's just like something you've done already or
Yeah,
like
you
something
want to relive it.
yeah, you want to relive it. That's it. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then if I may keep going, this one thing that really struck me about fantasies once in this one study was that it was a study that was like talking to sex therapists about how they manage fantasies in couples therapy. And I would think that if you had couples therapy, okay, so my reaction was, you would talk about your fantasies, wouldn't you? But that's not true
No.
because that upsets them.
I think that like that's like, like doing that could possibly open Pandora's box for some couples, right? And I
Yeah,
think that like a lot of time, listen, I don't think it's uncommon that partners are on different pages sex
yeah,
wise.
for
You
sure.
know what I mean? They have different fantasies, some tame, some normal. And I also think that it's one of those things like fantasies are, they're kind of, they're private desires, I guess.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? And like, listen, I think that like, yeah, there's definitely a space for couples to talk about it. Do you know what I mean? I think
yeah,
there has to be some level of understanding, and I think they have to have a very healthy and stable relationship and there has to be
yeah.
understanding there to do it. But I can tell you that I feel like that could be a recipe for
So
hardship.
look at me, like not a great sex person. Like I was like, why wouldn't you talk about your fantasies? You're sitting in a therapy session. You should be as open and honest as possible. And it's like all of this scholarship is like, don't do it because you're
Mhm.
upset. You're gonna upset them, and then they're gonna be like, what the hell? He wants. To, I'm not gonna do that. Or like, who's he thinking
Yeah,
about? You know.
yeah,
Um.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then I would think like, wouldn't it be normal that you tell your partner normal? You know what I mean? Whatever. Or healthy that you tell your partner, I want to do this thing.
It all depends on what it is.
I know. You're like, oh god. I don't want to be
No, no,
judged.
we need more peanut butter and another dog.
Oh my god. Anyway, but what this okay, this one thing jumps out. There's that. And this other thing that jumps out at me, which again was like mind blowing, is that this therapist. So there's a whole section on how to treat patients that can't have them. And I was like,
Can't
I
have what?
don't
Can't have fantasies.
fantasies.
They
And I
can't
was
fantasize.
yeah, and I was like, that's unusual. You're that
Just
to me is
destroyed their imagination.
it's like you're telling me you can't think or you can't breathe. Like or you can't feel. And then
Could
like
never be with something like that. A real lack of creativity.
well, what? Okay,
But
so then you know some of it could. Okay, so this is what this study says: is they use this person as an example, and they say this couple comes in, she has low desire, he's got premature ejaculation. They're in there. It's like it's like a ticking time bomb, and like, and then they're like, okay, we got to work on your desire, and she's like, great, and the therapist is like, what do you fantasize about? And she's like, nothing. And he was like, give me something, you know, like your ideal. What would you want him to do? Ideal. And she was like, I don't think about that. It just like, it just part of me is like, she's lying. Like, I can't imagine. And he's like, he can wear whatever outfit. He can, you know, he can play whatever. She's like, nope. Yeah, nothing.
Got to take his socks off.
It's like wild. And
It's
then,
like
sorry, go on.
no, no. Well, it's funny, but like, weren't we talking like typically like there are some people with desires so low that like you were saying that like they're not hypersexual
Yeah.
individuals, and it's like they're good to have sex like once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's good for them.
See,
Do you
but
know what I
even
mean? So
like,
I could see like I mean so they're just I mean I feel like at that point it's like more about like it's like more about protecting from like a blowout than like than actually
oh,
than actually really like having like some sort of sexual connection with your partner.
what do you mean preventing a blowout?
Preventing
What
like
do you-
preventing the tanks from blowing. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain maintenance that has to happen before. You know what I mean? You gotta wait 3 times. Only have sex a couple times a year.
yeah.
Like that's
Well,
like
but so drive. You're talking about drive. You're saying somebody with a hypoactive drive, or maybe even someone asexual, like they don't need it. But like,
yeah.
but drive and desire are two different things. So like, drive is like you're actually doing it. Desire is like you're thinking about it. You're fantasizing. You're watching porn. You're masturbating. You're doing all those things. but especially the thinking about it. And I guess I just assume like people, even if you think about it once a year, you know how to, or you have something you fall back on where you're like, I saw that guy, whatever, shoveling that driveway that one time. And I was like, holy
You're
shit.
really putting that into
So then,
it.
like, the therapist gives this woman erotica and says, "Study that. Like, here it is. Here's erotica." He's like, "It wasn't even crazy. It wasn't porn. It was here's erotica. It's literature." She goes, "Great." And she comes back with her husband, and they're pissed, and they're like, "This is just disgusting." And he was like, "I don't know what to do. Like, I just she doesn't think
She's
about it at
pissed.
all. Both, both.
They're both pissed. About the literature?
Yeah,
About the content of the literature?
yeah." And then like I'm talking about it with classmates. I'm like, if somebody said to me, I don't know how to have a fantasy, I've literally never seen anything that aroused me. How do I do that? I'd be like, I would probably be like, yeah, okay, watch a porn, get a clue. Like, I don't know. And then I remember this other part of the
Check
group.
their pulse.
It's like, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
know, I know, I know, I know.
it's like you
But
never
the thing
saw a
I think
movie?
you and I are, like, totally different, like, that's the thing is, like, I think you like, I am at least on, like, the total
I'm like,
opposite end of that
woo!
spectrum.
How do you stop thinking about it? That's the doctor I need. Like, another one.
Yes,
Oh my God. But then,
do
like,
yourself a favor.
I know. It's like, how do you do that? Like, God willing, someone could show me how to do that. And then
Mhm.
like the doctor says that he prescribed masturbation to her and was like, do it by yourself.
Masturbation what?
Masturbation to her. That was the prescription.
Oh.
He was
Oh,
like,
okay.
you go alone. He's not there. Close the lights, whatever you want. And then you just let the current take you away. Like your mind has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But like,
But
does
I think,
it?
like I feel like yeah, but I think that doesn't that require desire?
He was forcing it. He was like, if you feel something, your brain is gonna go somewhere. It has to. But like, does it? Because like again, I could tell you about all kinds of other
Yeah.
studies into masturbation that people say. I think about a past partner. I think about what I want to do with my future partner, and then people are like, I think about nothing, nothing. I just want to go sleep. It's like right. You're like what?
It's a means to an end. It's a means to an end.
Pardon?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think that, different strokes for different folks. No pun
Yeah.
intended.
Wow, I guess the differences between men and women is what I find like so interesting. And this is like visual cues. They need that. And like
Men need
psychological.
visual cues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they just over and over and over again. It's like I need the visual cue, I need the visual cue. Which is great. But like this is the thing. Like it makes me think. Have you heard of Balesa? Have you heard of ethical porn?
Ethical porn. What is ethical porn?
Ethical porn. So there's basically a porn revolution happening right now.
Okay, all
And
right.
like you are a porn aficionado, so I probably should have given this as homework. But like there's feminist porn basically, which is ethical porn. So like they're all adult women and nobody's trafficked and
Yeah.
there's like they are consenting and
Well, I
they
hope that's like I hope that that's what
well
like, but I mean like I kind of like so I try and think that like anything that I'm looking at is in fact the case. Like it is ethical. Like these are two consenting individuals that want to do this.
see this
And
impacts women a lot.
and it and if it wasn't, I think that would really undermine my enjoyment of it for sure.
Yes.
No one like I don't want to like I'm not particularly turned on by someone who's not enjoying it.
Okay, so that leads to the third thing, which is authenticity. Like men say this, it needs to be authentic, which means like I'm talking about heterosexual men, but see, I don't want to say it applies to homosexual men because everything I read is like you just can't do that. You can't paint with a broad brush
Yeah,
like that. But you're heterosexual for all intents and purposes. This is heterosexual stuff. So authenticity is huge. It's like I have to ensure that her reaction is real, and this goes for real life too. So like
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
But I think I mean like to bring it back to that. I was also like that everyone's consenting and this is really what they want to do. You know what I
But
mean? It's
it does it prevent you? Like, do you ever go on like you're not on trial, but like now that you're like, oh, ethical porn is a thing. Like, what is that? Oh, this is what it is. Like, is that something that you think you'd be interested in, or is it like, no, I'd like to assume that what I'm looking at is that because in reality it might not be that.
it may not be, but I mean, like sometimes, like I feel like you kind of like you end up in the rabbit hole and you see something, you're like, I'm actually just like not comfortable with that. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like this is like this doesn't seem as consensual as I'd
Yeah.
like it to believe. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this doesn't turn me on the least. This is all this is doing is making me feel awful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna move away from this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like this, it can change on a dime where you're like, no, 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 no. Uh-uh. Like
Oh
next
yeah, for
scene.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it to men to fuck it up for sure.
And then the fourth one is novelty is big.
Yeah,
And that's
I think
like
so. I think
the
novelty.
component, which is like that's an episode for another day, which is like, why do human beings insist on being monogamous then when like women talk about novelty too? It's like it's not unusual, you know? That's why I think porn people look at maybe so many different kinds of porn because they're like, that's new, that's new, that's new,
Well, it's just
like
exactly. Listen, it's like the reality. The reality is, and it's funny because I saw was it Jordan Peterson, like a snippet of Jordan Peterson talking
yeah,
about pornography,
yeah,
and he was just like this is the way in which monogamous relationships can skirt the line of monogamy. Like it's
yeah,
kind of like what they can do. It's like this is how like people who are in monogamous relationships kind of like are able to satisfy their novelty, their
yeah.
sexual novelty through
There's a
pornography.
lot of scholarship around that. Like it's healthy in that regard that it can like satiate that. And you're like, let I go home. Like I don't feel like I'm doing. But then there's people that believe that like watching porn is cheating. You know, I don't.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But it
Yeah.
evokes very strong emotions in people.
Some people, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely. Some people are just like, no, like they're like they look at it like cheating. I mean, like to me, I've never been with someone who's considered it that.
yeah,
And to be honest, if I did it, if I was, then it probably would never have lasted anyway.
yeah,
It's one of those things. Like I think that there has to be some level of security in yourself that your partner is kind of coming back to you. And if
yeah,
you're in like a safe space in a healthy relationship, there should be that kind of understanding that this is just like I don't know, maintenance or whatever you want to call it,
yeah. It's self care.
self care.
That's
Yeah,
what it is. It's just self care. I think every study after study after study with like masturbation too is men just do it more. And I think like things would be easier for everyone if like women just were groomed into believing that same thing. They're just not.
that it's okay or that everyone does it.
That it's okay and that everyone does it and that it is
Not
actually
everyone.
self-care. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no. I know not everyone
yeah,
does it. That's true. But
yeah,
that like lots of people do, that it is totally okay and that it is 100% self-care. It's actually like it's recommended,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, honestly, like, keeps me sane.
Can you
Keeps me sane.
imagine?
Yeah,
I want to
brings you down to baseline, right? But it's definitely, I mean, like obviously for a very like physical reason is like you release a lot of dopamine when that happens, right?
yeah.
Like it makes you feel better. Your stress hormones go down. Like,
Yeah. It's too
didn't
bad.
you see the Wolf of Wall Street?
Did I what?
You saw the Wolf of Wall Street
Yeah.
when he's like, how many times you jerk off? Like, once, 2, 3 times a week. Yeah, you gotta get those numbers. Those are rookie numbers.
I
Get
don't
those numbers
remember
up.
that.
Me, two, three times a day.
I was gonna ask you. Actually, I was gonna cap it off and ask you because my I was raised on movies. What's your favorite sex scene in a movie was? But not even sex scene. It's just like your favorite sex thing in a movie. You
Oh,
could say Wolf of Wall Street, or you could do another one.
I don't know. Or like what like in terms of like what's like the best sex scene I've ever seen in a movie, or the like my favorite sex scene in a movie, or is it just any sort of conversation about sex in a movie?
Have at it. Either.
I
The
don't know.
most impactful. I want to like I could go because one of the most like I guess like sexual movies I ever saw where I was like, "Whoa," was Closer with Julia Roberts and Clive Owen and Jude Law and Natalie Portman. And I don't know if you've ever
Um,
seen it, but if you watch it, there is not a single sex scene in it. They never do it.
isn't
They
she?
just
Does she play a stripper or something like that?
she plays a stripper. Do you see her boobs? I don't remember. But like that's the most overtly sexual scene. Because the entire movie, they're just talking about it. That's it. Like it's just they're constantly, constantly talking about sex, and the way that they're talking about it is like extremely provocative. And it's
Yeah.
also like two couples like cheating and like, oh, there's like all this drama. But it was like the most sexually intense movie I ever saw. And then after I left the theater with my like a girlfriend of mine, we're like, man, nobody actually ever did it. You never like saw them do it.
What a
We
tease.
were like, yowza. I know. We're like, Clive Owen is so hot. We're like, but we never saw him do shit.
Yeah.
It was just very deceptive.
Like, I feel like I got robbed by 1025 there.
I know. You got a
Jeez.
movie scene?
Do I have a movie scene? Honestly, I don't think I have a movie scene. I mean, like, I think like probably like an Unfaithful, like Diane Lane. Like, I think that those are like some
Yeah.
pretty wild sex scenes. Uh,
Do you think it was because it was so forbidden? Or does that have anything to do with it?
well, I think there's always. I mean, like, what, because she was married?
Yeah.
Well, I
And
think
that's what made
they were
it so
pretty. I mean, they were
intense.
pretty explicit sex scenes anyway. Like, they were
Yeah.
pretty explicit and kind of like raw sex scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hyper passionate, animalistic sort of,
Yeah.
right? Like, like, but like, did the element of taboo and like and just like the fact that she's being unfaithful, like, kind of play into it? Like, I don't know. I don't know if that necessarily played into it. I mean, there's always like the element of taboo is always like is always a novel thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, I think a lot of people have a lot of sexual fantasies around certain taboo things.
They do.
I
They
mean,
most
that's
certainly do.
a whole other podcast right there. That might be that might
Taboo
have
could
more.
be like,
That might
oh
have
my
more than one
god.
volume.
Yeah.
but
Totally.
but I don't know.
And
I mean, it could. I think it could. I think for depending on who the viewer is, I think that particular element could have certainly
no,
had. Oh,
you
you mean specific?
because yeah,
Well,
because
how can you?
women like talk about um like there's context is important, and then like and like it's not just like the sex that they're thinking about, it's like what led to it. And I think men differ in that way, that they're like, no, I just kind of like the sex. But then like it's
No, I think that's
there's
no. I think that there's like.
there's
I mean,
a
for
but
me, I think that there's definitely like the process of it, the getting there. I think is also like, especially I would say like the easiest way to describe it's like when you're with a new partner, the
yeah,
process of getting there. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like the cat and the mouse, the chase. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? But, like that's hype. That's hyper. I think that's hyper erotic. I think that's like very.
yeah.
That's yeah.
That's why I think like that like all of these studies into men like porn, explicit images, and women like erotica. I think like what, men like erotica. There's no chance you don't like. I think feelings and passion and this like the psychological aspect, like the things that men talk about, like what are really important to them, authenticity, and like she has to be really into it, and then like I need to see her wanting me. Is are these like this 1-2 punch? It has to be there. Is like, well, then a part of you has to really like care about feelings. You have to. It's not just like a sex thing. It's like a whole collection. So
Hmm.
I think men, can like erotica more than we give them credit for. Like, how could you not be like turned on by like a nice story?
Yeah.
How could you not? You have an imagination.
Yeah. Some people do.
Yeah,
Some people
some
do.
people do. Yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, I think that like yeah, I think that there's a time and a place for it all, right? There's a time for it just to be like boom, get it done, and there's a time for the slow play. Really build it up.
depends on your mood. You're like,
Depends on
well,
the
what am
mood.
I gonna look at today?
Yeah, depends what you're into that day. And I think once again that in itself is novel as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Is the novelty like sometimes it's just like you just like you like sometimes you want to find a partner that you can just knock boots like boom like that, and
yeah,
sometimes you want someone to treat you nicely.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know
I was gonna say, like, should I end it here and ask you, do you think that the disgust thing is like, well, there's truth to the disgust thing, that everybody that looks at it and picks that clip that gets progressively and progressively more disgusting goes like, oh God, I don't want to see this anymore. But like, do you think that there's hope for people to not like progressively and progressively get worse? Like, do you think like it's not necessarily like that? You can autocorrect based on, hey, today I'm feeling like I want to snuggle. Like, I'm gonna
I gotta
look at
tell you,
that.
I think that all has to do with like like the individual itself, right? I think, yeah, there's
Yeah.
certainly individuals that like it gets to a point, right? Like where it's like this is about as like far as you want to go. Like I mean, like probably just for me, it's like I don't really want to see someone get choked. I
Yeah.
don't want to see a
I know.
girl.
Some
I
people
don't want to
do.
see. I don't want to see a girl like being forced to give this blowjob so hard that she's crying and her makeup.
Oh god.
You know what I mean?
It
Like
upsets me.
yeah,
Like,
that's disgusting. It's disgusting. Like I don't want to feel like I'm getting a blowjob from the crow. Like seriously, like
oh my
it's
god, Daniel, it's gross.
ridiculous. But
I
it's true
shouldn't.
though. But to me like that I find that kind of disgusting. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And,
Yeah.
so you
You know
kind of
what?
go and I'm like like I was like
You know what? I should take a cue from my friend Amanda who always says, she says, don't yuck someone's yum. And I'm
well, I'm
like,
not gonna
"Ugh,
yuck
my
someone's yum.
crow."
That's fine. That's
But like,
fine, right? But
I
like
don't want it.
I don't know. Like to me, it seemed I don't know. To me, like it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. However, and that's the thing. Like, don't
Yeah.
let someone's yum. Like to me,
Yeah.
that's just not my thing. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure some people, it exists. It's absolutely their thing. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
their thing to
Hey,
completely
and when done
dominate.
consensually,
Yeah, to
none of my
completely.
business.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's like they just want to dominate this person. That's their thing. Like that's
Yeah.
that part of it is very erotic, arousing to them. Right?
Yeah.
Not mine. Like it's just not.
Yep.
That's just not my cup of tea.
To each their own. We'll end it on don't yuck someone's yum. How
Don't
about
yuck
that?
don't yuck someone's yum. It's Baldini.
Thank you,
You
Daniel. Thank you for letting me pick your brain today.
we
You
were
represent